All right. We should be live again. Not sure what was going on before, but restarting the computer seems to have solved the problem for now. Um, we were having a little bit of technical difficulties if you're watching this later, and so this is our second attempt. Basically, the goal for today is to write as many chapter beats as possible, though we're starting late now, so I'm not sure how many we'll actually get through. And I'm going to try and do that instead of writing or editing the chapters that I've already um, put together. And just as a little backup, I wrote the beats for another chapter earlier today, and I wasn't live. So that was this chapter, Earning Respect, where Mina earns the wolves' trust, gaining their aid. And now at the end of this chapter, they're going back up to this cave where the rest of her group is. The wolves have sensed something is wrong, and so they're heading up to that cave at top speed. So let me go ahead and turn on the dictation software. Mina is amazed at how fast she is actually able to run. Period. Moving with the wolves is almost like she is moving with family, uh, her kin, comma. Even though the wolves are very different from vampires, comma, there is something about them that feels like family. Period. New line. And yet, comma, the wolves seem to think something is wrong, comma, as they make their way back to the cave where Jonathan, comma, Arthur, comma, Abraham, comma, and Sherlock are all waiting for them. Period. And as they get closer, comma, Mina begins to smell it too, comma, a wrongness in the air that she cannot explain. Period. She has never smelt that scent before. Comma, but everything about it screams unnatural. Period. She puts on a renewed burst of energy. Period. New line. Her worst fears are realized as they approach the cave in the mountains, comma, and Mina hears shouts coming from within, comma, along with the flashbang of gunshots going off, period. She wasn't sure who brought a pistol, comma, likely Arthur or Jonathan, comma. But if they are using it, that is a bad sign, period. Mina flies into the cave. Redoubles her speed and practically flies. Period. New line. Once inside, comma, she sees what is going on, comma, and the source of the open quote wrong close quote stench is finally revealed. Period. Jonathan comma Arthur, comma and Sherlock are backed up against the far wall of the cave, comma with Arthur holding the gun and firing at thin and grotesque creatures open parenthesis. These creatures look like zombies, period. Describe them as zombies, comma, but do not use the word zombies, close parenthesis. Period. Mina is horrified at the look of them. Period. New line. Abraham Van Helsing is at the front, comma, confronting the creatures. Using his enhanced strength and agility, period. However, comma, standing behind the creatures, comma, closest to Mina and the incoming wolves, comma, is the auburn-haired vampire that Mina had seen earlier, comma, briefly, comma, at the auction in London. Period. Her arms are folded, comma, and she is watching the horrible creatures, comma, with skin rotting on their bones, comma, attack the others, period. New line. Mina doesn't wait any further, comma, she launches herself at the Bride of Dracula, comma, the one she is pretty sure is named The bride turns, comma, barely noticing Mina in time to get her defenses up and prevent Mina from ripping her throat out, period. Okay, at this point, I'm going to take everything I've written so far and put it into Claude and ask it to choreograph the fight scene here. The following is a summary of a chapter I'm writing. I'd like you to choreograph the fight scene between Eval and Mina while also keeping note of the zombies that are attacking the others. The wolves should also join the attack, attacking the zombies and ripping them to shreds. but Mina needs to note at some point during the battle that the zombies are not dying the same way a normal person dies, but that they keep getting up even if all they have is a single arm or two to pull themselves along. At some point near the end of the battle, Arthur needs to be bitten by one of the zombies. Here is the summary of the story so far. All right, yep, that's pretty good. And I'm just going to stick this in here, and we're going to obviously validate it here. So baring your fangs, Eval sidesteps swiftly, avoiding Mina's attack. She counters with a vicious backhand, catching Mina across the face. Mina stumbles but keeps her feet under her. She circles Eval warily as Eval adopts a fighting stance. They exchange a flurry of blows, blocking and striking in a deadly dance. Mina, I'm just going to get rid of the deadly dance thing. I feel like that's the kind of phrase that will later, when I'm trying to get the text prose out of it, I feel like that's the kind of phrase that will lead to some text prose that I don't want. Mina is fueled by rage, while Eval remains calm and calculating. Eval lands a solid kick to Mina's midsection, knocking the wind out of her. Mina shakes it off and sweeps Eval's legs out from under her. As Eval hits the ground, Mina pounces, sinking her fangs into Eval's shoulder. Eval cries out and shoves Mina off of her. She gets to her feet, blood dripping from the bite wound. Her eyes blaze with fury now. The two vampires clash again, neither gaining the upper hand. Meanwhile, the wolves have joined the fray, launching themselves at the zombies with snarls and snapping jaws. They tear into the rotting flesh, ripping limbs from torsos. The zombies are unfazed, continuing to shamble toward the humans even as they are beset by the wolves. Mina notices this as she fights. They do not die as men, she calls out. The wolves redouble their efforts, but the zombies remain animate. One seizes a wolf in its gruesome grasp. The wolf yells as the zombie's jaws close around its neck. Seeing this, Mina abandons her duel with Eval to aid the wolves. She tears the zombies away from the injured wolf, then whirls to decapitate another with her bare hands. Eval takes the opportunity to slip away, fleeing the cave while Mina is occupied. Mina fights relentlessly alongside the wolves, but there are too many zombies. They slowly force Mina and the wolves back. Then suddenly Arthur cries out. Mina turns to see him clutching his arm. Blood seeping from a zombie bite. The battle is lost. Mina yells fall back and helps to get the humans out of the cave, the wolves protecting their retreat. That's not bad. I'm trying to remember what happens to this particular bride of Dracula, because I seem to recall. So two of them are going to die. The third one gets away. I'm pretty sure this is not the first time that one dies, so I'm pretty sure she does get away here. This says that we capture the bride on board. I think that's not what I actually planned. I think we kill that bride. And yeah, because she kills the bride, takes her place. Yep. And then the second one dies in the climax, and then the third one gets away. All right. So this bit about Aval managing to get away is good. On the way out, Mina decapitates another zombie, and notices that the body of the zombie does not continue living, and she figures out that decapitating the zombies is the best way to eliminate them from the picture, although their heads still continue to be animated. Snap their jaws relatively harmlessly. Period. Arthur stumbles with them, clutching at his arm, but he needs Jonathan's help as they leave the cave. Period. Mina yells at the wolves to decapitate the zombies. And the wolves start howling, taking up the cry as they drag Arthur back down the mountain to Dracula's castle. Period. I think that's good. So this goes in the chapter 13 super prompt, I believe. Here under chapter beats. What's wrong with the beheading, Robin? Just because that's the way it always works? Okay. Go to outline. I'm a romance writer. Well, I'm not. So this is not a romance book. Sorry. We're going to get a little gruesome and gory. Let's see. This is the one we want. And chapter 13. Overview. This takes place inside of a cave in the mountains near Dracula's castle at night. And that should be good. And I'm going to go ahead and run this. I'll briefly watch it to make sure it's looking okay. It's a romantic beheading. Sure. This looks like it's going a little quickly, so I'm going to run it again while it's running the first one. Okay, this one's looking a little better. And while that's going, I'm going to start prepping the next one. Which is the problem revealed when Arthur turns into a zombie. Poor Arthur. It's a romantic turning into a zombie. We'll just say that. This scene takes place inside Dracula's castle in the just inside the front doors. The castle. This takes place after Dracula's death, and the castle is much cleaner and neater these days, but is still dark and dank. All right. And then we get to the overview here. Okay. Let's check on Claude. All right, looks like it got the number of words, or it stopped in the right place. That's always nice. 1,600 words, maybe. Let's see what the other one did. Thousand words, so yeah, definitely not that one. Let's go back, copy that again. I'm just gonna run it one more time for good luck. Okay. This is not looking better. So the one that we have might be the one that we use. And doing okay for time. I'm glad we got through that. We got through that one rather quickly. So maybe we can get through at least 2 more. We'll see. All right, let's start on number 14 here. Arthur becomes a zombie. They realize they're up against something really bad. Van Helsing also realizes that in the scuffle, somebody, probably one of the brides, has taken the urn of Dracula's ashes. All right. That's 1,300 words for that one. I'm going to just retry this instead of trying it in a separate chat. Ooh, I like the language of this one. No, this one's too fast. Way too fast. I think the amount of words you have in the story beats affects how long these things tend to be. The more detail you have, I think the better it does. Let me make some notes here in the beats. Spend extra time adding emphasis to this section. Try something like that. Let's try that. Yeah, that's definitely not going to work. Probably shouldn't be spending too much time worrying about generating the beats when I should be worried about writing the next one, but we'll see. This one's looking better already at first glance. Yeah, this one's definitely looking better. Well, I'm not sure. Well, let's see. Yeah, 1,300 words. So I think that first one, let's go back to that one. This one was 1,600 words. Yeah, but it's really like melodramatic. I'm gonna try one more thing. I know I shouldn't be doing this, but now I like can't stop thinking about it. We're gonna make this a 1,500 paragraph thing, or just extend the number of paragraphs and see what it does. Still says 500 paragraphs. Oh, I wonder if that's because I have the reminder. I need to. Nope, this is definitely not it. All right, I'll get to this eventually. Let's just continue writing the beats for now. I need to get at least 2 more. So, I'm encouraged, however, with that choreograph, with the way ChatGPT or with the way Claude choreographed that fight scene. It really saved me a lot of time on that one. So I'm going to see if there are sections of this next chapter, the chapter beats, where I could do the same thing. Might save some time doing that. I think just giving it the chapter summary and saying create a bunch of beats from this is not going to be sufficient. But if I get it started and then I ask it to continue for a certain section, I think that could be more effective to getting the type of beat that I want, because I'm already feeding it part of the just some examples. Um, so let's go ahead and do that. Actually, I'm just gonna try something totally different. Because why not? Let's just pick one of the ones that we did that had like 3,000 words in the generation. Let's do this one. Copy them in here. And I'm going to turn this into a super prompt and call this example. And up here at the top, example. And then we'll add some instructions here at the top. And then we'll add another section for chapter summary. And now we can go into our chapter summary Arthur becomes a zombie. I'm just curious what this will do. Using the following chapter summary, please expand the summary to a list of detailed story beats with additional chapter information to flesh out the story. The story beats I've included an example of what good story beats should look like, and the output should be roughly 4,000 words. I'm not expecting it to do 4,000, but I'd like 2,000-3,000, or even just like 1,500 would be fine. So let's try that. Let's see if it does anything. Okay, so wakes up with him waking up the next morning feeling very strange. His body feels cold and lifeless, and he has an insatiable hunger. No, so this should be okay. A couple of things to add to this prompt. It's actually starting to get into the text. I don't want it to do that. Note that the chapter is from Mina's point of view, but these story beats should be written just like, we'll say, exactly like the example. Simply telling what happens in the chapter. Include the phrase 100 paragraphs after each story beat. I know I want a stop button for Claude as well. The closest thing that I can get is if it's a new chat and I realize like that the chat isn't what I want and I don't want to go back and forth with it, I'll just delete the chat. Keeps things somewhat clean. But if you're going to go back and forth with the AI on something, then obviously you don't want to do that. Let's try this again. This might be a failed experiment. I might just go back to writing them the next morning, or the normal way. Mina wakes up the next morning still frustrated. All right, it's not getting the context really good. So I think the solution to that is to give it the beats that we just generated and try it that way. This will be my last attempt. Yeah, no, this isn't doing things right. Oh well, that didn't work. But I do think I can ask it to take sections and take it from there. So we'll try that. All right, moving on. Overview. All of them, comma, Mina, comma, Arthur, Sherlock, comma, Abraham, comma, and Jonathan all stumble into Dracula's castle, comma, with Jonathan and Sherlock propping Arthur up between them, comma, who is appearing weak and feverish now, period. They get him onto the nearest couch, comma, and Sherlock goes to fetch some bandages to wrap the wound, period. New line. Abraham Van Helsing stands off to one side, comma, turned away from Arthur, comma, and says that it will be no use, period. Mina goes to Abraham, comma, asking him what he means, comma, and Abraham tells them that he has read something about those creatures that attacked them in the cave, comma, that were being guided by the Bride of Dracula, period. If what he has heard is true, comma, then their bite is much like the bite of a vampire, period. New line. Jonathan yells that they can't just do nothing, period. They have to do something for Arthur, period. Perhaps there is a doctor in the village that can help, period. Van Helsing rounds on them and angrily yells that no doctor can fix. He is a doctor, comma, and no doctor can fix anything like this, period. He has been trying for years now with no success, period. New line. Mina asks what he is talking about, period. These strange and horrifying creatures are nothing like vampires, period. Van Helsing explains that they all come from the same virus, comma, mutated in different ways, period. If he had to guess, comma, this is something he has told them before, comma, that the original virus originated some 1,000 years ago, comma, originally spreading through vampire bats, comma, wolves, comma, and rats, period. If he had to guess, comma, these strange undead creatures were the results of the virus spread by rats, period. Dracula's notes hint as much when commenting on the Black Death. Comma, which Abraham has been perusing for years now, comma, period, new line. Sherlock joins them again, comma, enough to catch the gist of the conversation, period. He looks at Arthur, comma, who is still shivering and pale, comma, completely feverish, comma, sweating all over, period. Arthur asks for help in a weak voice, period. Sherlock figures out what is happening by scanning the situation, comma, and says, open quote, I'll do it, period, close quote. New line. Sherlock moves to pull a stake from his belt. Comma, a weapon that even Mina didn't realize was there, comma, as it was hidden under Sherlock's cloak, period. Jonathan quickly runs to Arthur's side, comma, screaming no, comma, that they can't abandon Arthur like this, comma, that there has to be another way, period. But at that moment, comma, Arthur seizes Jonathan's arm, comma, and is about to bite it, comma, when Mina closes the distance between them in a flash and pushes Arthur away, period. Arthur, comma, though still semi-lucid, comma, is now snapping at them, comma, the horrifying effects of the virus turning him into one of those things that they encountered on the mountain. Period. Arthur looks to Mina, comma, desperation in his eyes, comma, and he mutters one word, colon, open quote, please, period, close quote. New line. Mina understands what Arthur means, comma, and walks over to Sherlock and takes the stake from him. Period. She looks over at Abraham and asks him if driving the stake through the heart will have the same effect as it does for a vampire. Period. Van Helsing confirms this, comma, also adding that driving it through the brain will do as well. Period. New line. Mina walks over to Arthur, comma, who is beginning to roll out of the couch, comma, crawling towards Jonathan, who has fearfully retreated back several steps by now. Period. Mina stands over Arthur and tells him that she is sorry, comma, before driving the stake home into Arthur's heart. Period. Arthur sighs, comma, almost in relief, comma, then goes still. Period. New line. Everyone stands there, comma, silent for a moment, comma, the solemnity of the moment really pressing down on them, period. All right, I'm going to pause there and go to Claude. And please ask it to please continue the following story beats over the next the beats should continue with a brief conversation between the remaining people about what they should do next. Jonathan gets fixated on wanting to bury Arthur, but Abraham thinks they should they need to focus on a solution, so more there are no more casualties, and Sherlock agrees. Arthur should then go to his study and realize that an urn he was using to hold the ashes of the late Dracula is gone. They should search for it a while before concluding that one of the brides must have taken it, and that the earlier attack must have been a distraction. Oh, dang it. Oh. Come on. And it did that thing where it like crashed on me. Doesn't usually do that with a short prompt, but maybe it's because I didn't give it the thing. Now I'm going to have to write the whole thing again. Sorry, guys. I'm just going to dictate it this time to make it quicker. Please continue the above story beats. Period. They should briefly debate what they should do with Arthur. Period. Jonathan wants to bury Arthur. Comma. But Van Helsing insists that they need to study him so they can figure out how to prevent this from happening again. Period. Sherlock agrees, comma, though notes that they will soon be needed back in London, comma, as the brides clearly have some issue, some plan that they are trying to put into motion, period. That causes Mina to wonder why the brides are in Romania in the first place, period. Abraham returns to his study to try and find some additional information and notices that an urn that he was using to carry the ashes of Dracula has been stolen, period. They frantically search the castle for some time, comma, but eventually determine that the brides must have taken it while they were in the cave, comma, and that the attack may have been a diversion, period. Here are the story beats for the chapter so far, colon. This is good. Yeah, this is a much better way to get beats. Abraham slips away to his study to grab some books that may help to learn more of these strange undead creatures they were attacked by. Mina and the others eventually hear Abraham yell, and they run to the study to learn what's wrong. He tells them that an urn containing Dracula's ashes is missing. Mina asks him what he was doing with the ashes of Dracula, period. Van Helsing merely replies that if the virus for vampirism was so strong in Dracula, comma, he needed all of his remains to continue to study the virus, period. They begin a search, period. New line. Sherlock begins to muse to himself. Comma, noting out loud that some of the pieces are coming together, colon. The strange old flute that was sold at the auction, comma, the undead creatures, comma, Dracula's ashes. Comma, the brides, comma, it all must be connected somehow, period. They all ask him how, comma, and he is not certain yet, comma. But he is certain that there must be something in Dracula's notes that may give them a clue as to what is going on, period. He surmises that the brides of Dracula are not clever enough on their own to come up with such a complex plot, period. They must be working off of some unknown ritual or lore that they have overlooked, period. They all agree, comma, even Jonathan, comma, that they must pour through the books to find something that answers that question, period. Okay, and that's about right for our beats. How many words is this? Only about 1,000 words. I don't know if this will be really good for a long chapter, but we'll see. I'll go ahead and add it here. And it occurs to me that I can just pretend that this chapter isn't over and continue to feed it into Claude and ask it for the next bit. So I'm going to try that as soon as I'm done here. All right, we're good here. All right, so that's the chapter 14 super prompt. Chapter 15. Let's grab our outline. This will probably be the last one of the night. Let's grab our setting. It's the same setting as the last chapter, so we'll just grab that same setting. Okay, here's what I'm going to try. I'm going to say please continue the following story beats. Write 3,000 more words of story beats using the following this is what should happen. Here is the story beats so far. Please continue from here. And then I give it this and see what it does. Yeah, this isn't bad so far. Except now it's getting into dialogue and stuff, which I don't want. Started off okay. Let's just try it one more time for kicks. but I'm not going to spend too much time on this. No. But this first beat will work. Alright. Sherlock and Van Helsing quickly get to work scouring through the vampire hunter's vast collection of books and scrolls for any mention of resurrection rituals or spells. After hours of fruitless searching, Sherlock slams the book shut in frustration. Even he can't seem to find anything that they need, period. Comma. Mina has been searching too, comma. For several hours, comma, but daytime is starting to come in. And she is growing tired. Period. She also notes that Jonathan has left, comma, and she goes to find where he may have gone. Period. New line. She finds Jonathan outside of the castle, comma, burying Arthur, digging a grave for Arthur using a shovel he must have found nearby. Period. Jonathan is silent as he digs, comma, and Mina joins him silently, comma, finding a shed where Jonathan must have retrieved the shovel, comma, picking up another shovel, comma, and going to help him, period. They work in silence for a time, period. Comma. And eventually the pit is deep enough that they are able to bury Arthur with the stake still embedded in his heart, comma. Period. Period. Then they cover him in the loose dirt. Period. New line. I'm going to say write the story beats for the for what Mina and Jonathan should say to each other without writing actual dialogue. This should be a tense conversation given that Mina is a vampire and Arthur was just killed by the brides of Dracula and her undead horde, and Jonathan has never been comfortable with the fact that his wife is a vampire. Here is the story beats so far. I'm going to retry that. Okay, it's a little better. But I'm not sure I'm going to copy paste it verbatim. It did better when it was choreographing a fight. Mina tentatively tries to talk to Jonathan, knowing that he is grieving Arthur, period. But Jonathan remains silent at first, clearly overcome with emotion, period. When he finally speaks, his voice is trembling with anger and perhaps even resentment, period. Mina remains tense, unclear if he is resentful toward her, or blaming her for bringing vampirism into their lives, period. New line. Jonathan tells her that he knows that she can't help being a vampire, period. He knows that being a vampire has certain advantages, advantages that probably saved his life in the cave, since both Mina and Abraham were able to fend off the zombies enough for most of them to get away, all except Arthur, period. But Jonathan Mina feels a open quote but close quote coming on, and Jonathan replies that secretly, he wishes that vampires did not exist at all, period. That yes, Mina was able to defend him, but he wouldn't need defending if there were no such things as vampires, period. New line. Stung, Mina tries to explain herself, once again pointing out that she has always tried to use her condition to help people, not hurt them, and only feed on those who deserve it, period. But Jonathan points out that Van Helsing has not fed on anybody, and he seems to be just fine, period. Those words sting Mina even further, and the argument turns heated, period. New line. Mina tells him that he simply can't expect these things from her, that he has no idea what she deals with every day, that he has no idea what it is like to be a vampire, turned against her will, period. Jonathan fights back, telling her that he doesn't think he cares anymore, that he can't live this kind of life anymore, constantly fearing for his own safety, not only from other vampires and these strange undead creatures, but from Mina herself, period. New line. Mina is taken aback by this, comma, and Jonathan seems to realize that he may have gone too far, period. But Mina has had enough, comma, and she turns and storms back into the castle to see if Sherlock and Abraham have made any progress, period. New line. Just as she is making her way inside, comma, she hears a triumphal shout by Abraham, comma, who comes out of his study, comma, carrying a book, comma, with Sherlock close behind, period. Abraham Abraham explains that he has found a resurrection spell, comma, one that Dracula had noted in his diaries some 100 years earlier, comma, that he had noted down apparently in case it would be needed to bring back himself or someone else from the dead, period. New line. He explains that he doesn't know exactly how it works, comma, but it involves feeding the ashes of the vampire in question, comma, in this case Dracula, comma, to a bunch of rats, comma, and infecting as many people as possible. Period. Then by bringing all of those people together, comma, which they have determined to be the same undead zombie-like creatures that attacked them earlier, comma, they will somehow be able to bring them all together in a way that resurrects Dracula from the dead, period. New line. Mina and Jonathan temporarily forget their quarrel, comma, when confronted with this new threat, period. The prospect of Dracula actually coming from the dead is not one that they had considered possible, comma, and one that they know that they must stop, period. New line. Sherlock suddenly snaps his fingers, comma, a connection falling into place, period. He explains that now he knows what the pied flute was that the brides of Dracula had taken from the auction, period. He explains that, comma, legend had it, comma, that the flute had once belonged to the Pied Piper. Period. The very same Pied Piper that had controlled a horde of rats using just his pipe. Period. New line. Jonathan tells him that he can't possibly believe in such stories, comma, but Sherlock wisely points out that they are living in an age of vampires and undead monsters, comma, and that he is willing to believe anything at this point, comma, even the old myths and legends, comma, which he hypothesizes may be far more truer than we realize. Period. New line. Mina realizes that they have to get back to London as fast as possible to stop this from happening. Period. Sherlock responds that he will get his coat, comma, and that is the end of the chapter. Period. Another shorter. It's another shorter batch of beats there. But it should be fine, I think. So this is for chapter 15. We'll add the 100 paragraphs. To the end of all of these. And then I'll spend the last few minutes generating these last couple of chapters that we just created. Still haven't generated the first one, but that was 3 chapter beats that we just generated. Okay. That should be good there. All right, let's move back to chapter 13. Let's see if there's anything I want to change about these chapter beats. And include plenty of description. Copy this. Go ahead and make this full screen now. And while this is going, I can answer some questions. All right. Okay, Cosmos asked, how many days do you predict it will take you to make this book publishable, including revisions? So I'm imagining I'm going to be live streaming, obviously doing all of the beat creation like I'm doing right now, and then my first revision, like the first main revision, that I start with, which I kind of consider to be part of the writing process and not part of the revision process, because it's really more of like fixing what the AI got wrong, and it's a lot more of an in-depth edit than what I would consider a normal edit. So I'm going to live stream that whole thing. But then after that, there probably will be another revision where I read through the entire thing relatively quickly because you get different insights by doing that, and hopefully correcting a few things. Once that is done, it should be a really brief process. I'm not sure if I plan to publish it immediately. Um, because I might do some YouTube videos about the process of getting it ready and doing some fun things. Like something that I do pretty much now with all my new books is include some concept art like at the beginning of each chapter, because I can now do that thanks to Midjourney and things like that. And so I'll probably be doing some of that and documenting that process, and maybe doing something about formatting, which I know isn't necessarily AI related, but I can just show the process off. Um, and yeah. All right. I was just glancing through this, but come on. Let's try it again. Um, and yeah, I'll be documenting the whole process, at least the first revision. I'll be documenting that whole process. I've done a little bit, a couple of chapters so far that you can go back and look at. Um, all right. Someone says my dictation prose never feels the same as my actual typed prose. Any fix for that? Not really. Um, what I'm doing here, I'm not really dictating final prose, so I'm not too worried about it. If I were dictating the final prose, I would probably be second guessing everything I say a lot more. Whereas this, it's more of a stream of consciousness. I'm just sort of talking about what I think should happen in the chapter. Doesn't matter if I used episodes instead of chapters. Not really certain what you mean by that, Fazio. But if like you definitely don't have to use the word chapter. I'm definitely not happy with the way this particular chapter is generating. Maybe if I change some of the language to make it more of a like action scene. Let's try it. Using all of the information, right? Five of and a detailed, we'll say, highly detailed action scene that should be a minimum of 50,000 words. We'll try both 500 paragraphs and 50,000 words, see if that makes a difference. And we'll tell it to do 1,500 paragraphs. And let's see if that makes any difference. Usually, I've mentioned this before, but usually when I get more word output out of a chapter, it is almost universally better. So am I using some kind of structure to expand my story beats, or do I just use whatever comes naturally? Yeah, I just kind of use whatever comes naturally. I've been writing long enough that I have a decent idea of how it should go. Very often, like in the moment. So that scene between Jonathan and Mina that I had was not in the original chapter description. I just kind of in the moment thought, oh, it would be kind of appropriate if Sherlock and Van Helsing were kind of doing their thing together and Jonathan goes out to bury Arthur. I had not really thought about burying Arthur as a plot point until I started to get deeper down and into like it's a very almost immersive process. Inserting myself into the story like I'm watching what's going on. Because sometimes when I get there and I'm in that space, I can see, oh, it would make sense if this sort of thing also happened. And, that's just part of the creative process. This is looking better. What is Claude's output max? Over 1,200 words. I mean, it can definitely do more than that. Yesterday I got 3,500 words out of one of the chapters. That's because I think my beats were super detailed and long. But it definitely doesn't have, like, it can vary. Sometimes I struggle to get it to do more than 1,000 words or so. Sometimes it just gives me 3,500 words. I wish it was more consistent. Let's just say that. But this is why we have to try these things over and over again. This one's already looking better. Right about here looks like is where it ended doing the material that I wanted it to. This is 1,600 words. Good, I'll take it. I was reading it through briefly, and I think that's probably going to be good. So we're going to add a chapter. This is chapter 13. We'll also be doing 14 and 15. So make sure I have 12, right? Yep. All right. And so this will be chapter 13. 1,600 words. And let's label this one chapter 13 winner. And let's get the story beats for chapter 14. I'm going to gray this out. Chapter 14. And we'll start generating chapter 14. Okay, Robin asks, when I add picture art to the pages, will that increase the publishing costs? It would if I wanted them to be in color, but I typically don't get them in color. I mean, I might for like the ebook version, but if you're getting the print version, then it would just be in black and white. There is a service called Book Vault that can give you a little bit more affordable options. Like if you're publishing a book on Amazon and you want even just one color photo in there, you have to pay the price as if every page was color. So the entire thing ends up becoming much more expensive to print. But there's the service called Book Vault, which will basically only charge you for the number of color pages in there. So if you have like 10 color pages and 100 black and white pages, you'll only be charged more for those 10 pages, and the rest will be charged based on black and white. So it's a really cool feature that they have, and they're one of those groups that if you're going to sell direct on Shopify or somewhere like a Shopify selling direct sort of situation, Book Vault is one that I would look at. Okay, I'm gonna give a wild guess that this is not going to be enough. Nope. Novice Writer asks, why aren't you happy about, or what aren't you happy about with the scene? So hard to say, really. It's just sort of a intuition thing at this point. Mostly I noticed that it's kind of skipping through the scene really quickly and not dwell, like when you're getting into deep point of view and showing and not telling, you sort of dwell on certain moments a little bit more. And it's pretty obvious to me within a first couple of paragraphs watching it whether it's doing that or not. And sometimes it takes a lot to get it there. I have to try multiple times to get it there. Yeah, let's do this one again. So we keep answering some questions. I can only access Claude Instant for free on Poe. How does that compare to Claude 2? Claude Instant, I believe, is the model before Claude 2, so it is not as advanced. I recommend using Claude 2 if you can. Things like this where I'm generating entire chapters all at once, definitely not really something that it can do in Claude Instant, at least as far as I'm aware. I didn't get a chance to play around with Claude Instant as much. But yeah. Novice Writer asks, what does 1500 paragraphs mean? So the way these super prompts work, the way you get it to write a whole lot of text, the way you do that is to basically give it a ridiculous number to shoot for, and it will stretch a little bit to try and get there, but obviously it won't get there. So you can ask it to do 50,000 words or 1,500 paragraphs, because sometimes it seems to listen more if you give it a number of paragraphs than a number of words. It's just one of those AI things that you just kind of figure out over time. Obviously, we're not expecting it to write 1,500 paragraphs or 50,000 words, but we are wanting it to do more than it would normally do. This is looking better. $1,300 words. Okay, that might be good. Let me read through this a little bit to see how good it is. Yeah, it will do, but I'm gonna run this one more time. Actually, before I do that, I'm going to just ask it to stretch a little more. We're gonna make this and a minimum of 50,000 words. Just ask it in a couple of key places to really stretch. Now we'll try this again. Hello. Fancy asks, do I love League of Legends? I honestly can't say I've played it. Sorry if that's disappointing to you, but I loved Arcane, the show that was on Netflix. Like that was some straight up amazing storytelling, for sure. But not like I'm not really I don't play a lot of that genre of video game. I play a lot of single player RPGs. That's more my thing. Open world games. Right now I'm playing Starfield, and I've been playing Starfield for a long time. I've barely even touched the plot. And honestly, I don't have much time for games anyway. But Ray of Light asks, Jason, have you had a chance to try the plugins on Sudowrite? There are so many. I've tried a few, but I honestly have not been able to take enough time to really play with them and see which ones are fun. But I definitely need to do that. There's yeah, I picked a bad month, you guys, to do all of these live streams, because basically this time that we're having right now from 7 to 9 Eastern time is when I normally do my videos. And so because we're doing these live streams, I haven't had the time to do those videos. And it's been like one of the busiest months in AI like since the beginning of the year. So I'm way behind, which is one of the reasons why I want to step up and try to get through this thing faster if I can, like within a week or so that I can um, get back to those videos because I need to do a whole bunch of videos about all of the new GPTs in ChatGPT because that's pretty incredible stuff from what I've seen so far. So I will definitely be doing videos about that. But if you're watching and you're wondering like why I haven't gotten into that, this is why. It's because I'm doing these live streams. I think I'm committed at this point. I probably won't do this again next year, but I'm committed and I'm going to get it done. Um, let's see. Cosmos asks, can you do a video in the future about where else to sell books besides Amazon? Sure. That sounds like a good idea. There are basically 6 places, uh, 6 with the like fuzzy 7th. Um, obviously, there's Amazon, and then you could sell it direct on your own website. Then the other ones are Apple and Kobo and Barnes and Noble and Google Play. That's 6. The 7th, there is a service called Draft Digital, which will basically get you in all of the others. It's not really worth it to go and try and get your book into all of the library apps and everything. This is looking. This is looking much better. Yes, 2,000 words. That's more what I want to see. Okay, that's going to be our winner for chapter 14. Let me just glance through it to make sure it's okay. Yeah, this is fine. All right. Last but not least, let's do the super prompt for chapter 15. It seems like adding a little bit of like increasing the number of paragraphs here seems to be helping. So I'm going to go ahead and add that and a minimum of 50,000 words. This one we're going to rename as Chapter 14 Winner. The reason I label those is because sometimes I like to come back to those chapters when I am editing the chapter. So I want them clearly labeled. Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is looking more telly instead of showy. But I'll let it run. Ray of Light says, woohoo RPGs, I need to play Starfield still. Yeah, it's really good. RPGs are my favorite. I love all of the Bethesda games, Elder Scrolls, like Skyrim. I've played Skyrim many, many times. Haven't gotten into Fallout that much, but mostly Skyrim and now Starfield. I love the Assassin's Creed games, which should not be a surprise, given that like the books that I write are mythology inspired and like take place in ancient history. So I love those. Mass Effect, the Batman Arkham games. Yeah, those are, I'd say, my top favorite franchises there. So this is a good question. So I redo prompts. You redo prompts when you don't like the output. Is tweaking the super prompt and redoing better than adding a corrective follow up to the AI? Most of the time, yes, I have found that to be the case. And I found that tweaking the prompt seems to um, work better than putting in the exact same prompt. I don't know why. Maybe there's something like with the seed that it's using. I don't know. 1,300 words for that. We can probably do better. Let's try that again. And, I'm obviously not tweaking this one, but um, Mina watched the Sherlock and Van Helsing quickly got to work. Yeah, I'll let it go. Have you tried doing sci-fi? Somehow the novel I was planning to make it martial art fantasy kind of turned into sci-fi. Be careful with that. You want to make sure you know what your genre is before you publish it. Otherwise, it's going to be like part fantasy, part science fiction, and you won't know who to market it to. This is a problem that I had when I was just starting out. I had a book that was like part sci-fi, part urban fantasy, part superhero novel, and it was a little bit of all three and a lot of none of them. So it was impossible to market. And I eventually took that off the market and decided to rewrite it later as more of an urban fantasy and include a lot more urban fantasy tropes in it. I love your live streams, though. Thank you. I appreciate that you love the live streams. I'll be sure to keep doing them, but just not like every night like this. In terms of faster, just remember you're writing a book and teaching a bunch of people how to be, and teaching a bunch of people how, so be easier on yourself. You're doing a ton. Thank you. I really appreciate that. How am I supposed to earn millions from self-publishing with all of the completion and saturation? Thanks. First of all, I would say let's temper our expectations a little bit. Most people do not make millions with self-publishing. I know of maybe I could probably count on my hand the people that I know for sure have made millions from self-publishing. One hand, not both. And if you are looking to make millions online, self-publishing is not the way to do it. I'm just going to be frank about that. You can earn a living with self-publishing. Plenty of people do it. But you're right that saturation is an issue. But I am honestly not as worried about saturation as most people. Oh, this isn't too bad. 1,700 words. Yeah, but that's not. No, I'm not liking that prose. We're gonna try it again. I'm gonna add a few notes here, and then I'll get back to your question here in a second. With plenty of detail and deep point of view. I don't know. That's all I know to add. So here's the thing about saturation. Yes, there is more saturation. It is harder to break into self-publishing than it was 10 years ago. Okay? That's not to say that it's something you shouldn't do, because it can still be very profitable if you know what you're doing. Because here's the thing. Marketing is where you can set yourself apart, because the marketing is the great equalizer. Anybody can write a book now, especially with AI, but not anybody will know how to market that book or be able to do it well, or know like what tropes they're supposed to hit for their audience. or have a good understanding of any of that. You look at someone like Brandon Sanderson, who is, had that Kickstarter that made 40 something million dollars. That came because he understood his people. He had developed a relationship with them over time and did something that he knew they would like, and that was completely on brand because he's like a super prolific author. It's things like that, building the community, that is going to set you apart and will give you the best chance of creating a successful career in self-publishing. Community, marketing. Remember that we're not creating books, we are creating connection with other people, right? That is the whole point of writing fiction, in my opinion. And so if you're willing to play the long game and spend time to do the marketing and to make those connections and to build a community, then 100% yes, you can make a living as an author. And who knows, you might even get lucky and do it without having, because it can take years, but you might get lucky and do it before that. But you can't go into it with the attitude of, how can I make money with this? Because if you just want to make millions online, there are better ways to do it. Hope that answers your question. Ray of Light asked about Dragon Age. I've only played Dragon Age 3, but I did enjoy it quite a bit. I will probably play the next one when it's available. Can you list the main things you scan for when reading a scene to determine whether it is good and it needs to be redone, or it needs to be redone? Yeah, sure. Let's take this one as an example. Mina watched as Sherlock and Van Helsing rifled through the endless pile of books and scrolls strewn about Van Helsing's study. The two men were searching intensely for any information on resurrection spells or rituals that could potentially bring the evil Count Dracula back to life. Already at the start, I'm not loving this because it's very telly and not showy. It's just telling me what happens. It's not like showing the, how they're rifling through the different books. It's not showing Mina's reaction to seeing these things. It's not getting into her senses. Maybe that's something I should add into this thing here. Plenty of description of her reaction to everything going on using more than one sense. Try something like that. After hours of fruitless search, Sherlock slammed another heavy tome closed in frustration, dust flying up in the dim candlelight. That's a better sentence. And then he says, nothing. There is simply nothing useful here, Sherlock grumbled, running a hand through his already unkempt black hair. Mina sighed, setting down the ancient scroll she had been peering at. The text was faded, and her wearied mind could barely concentrate. So this is better than that first paragraph. The other, probably the biggest thing that I look for, is hang on. Oh, this is weird. So it like wrote everything and then it like started over. Yeah, so things like that. Let's see. I have to find out where it ended. Okay, right here is where it ended. So if I copy this and look at the number of words it gives me, 1900 words. Okay, that's actually good. One of the biggest indicators that I've noticed of the quality of the prose is how much it gave me. Not how much did it give me overall, but because sometimes it goes off beyond the end of the story beats that I gave it and it continues the story from there, which I don't want it to do. So I select only the relevant portion of the text, and then I pop it into word counter to see how many words it is. And almost without fail, the larger number of words that I get, the better the prose is. And this I can already tell is good. So obviously we'll need editing like all of them, but that is good for me. So we'll go ahead and pop that in there. And then I'll edit it later. We're looking good so far. Let me see how many words we have in this book. 33,000. And we're more than halfway. So yeah, I'm guessing this thing will be about 50,000 words. Maybe more. We'll see. But the main things I'm looking for, obviously, word count. Like, is it giving me word count? Because that has been almost universally a good indicator. Then I look and read through it, and I think, like, is this sort of rushing through the scene? Because that's the best way I can describe it. You read through it, and you're just like, this is really feeling like it's rushing through the scene and not really lingering and sort of savoring each of the moments, which is what you want. There are other things that I'd look for too, like, is it not in the right point of view? Is it using the right tense? There are various things that can sometimes go wrong that you just want to watch out for. Usually it does okay with that because it's in the prompt. But yeah, so those are some of the main things that I look for. Any final questions? Otherwise, it's well after 9, so I need to go to bed. I was up at 4:30 or something this morning with my daughter waking up. So I am ready for that. Cheyenne, no more questions. Thank you. You're welcome. Hope that was useful to all of you. Yeah, just let me know anyone else in the chat. Otherwise, I think we'll wrap this up in a minute. So I now have how many chapters here? So I've edited up to chapter 9. So I have chapters 10 through 15 to edit. That's 6 chapters. I'm going to try and do more story beats tomorrow. Certainly when we have the live stream in the evening. I may have to skip the live stream on Thursday because I got some other things. But yeah. All right. Yeah, everyone go hit the like button. That'll help these things get seen. And that's something I don't talk about too much in my other videos because I assume people know what to do. But yeah, definitely hit that. Check out my membership, of course, if you haven't already. And I'll see you next time tomorrow.